If you are considering artificial grass for your home or business, but aren't sure how much it's going to cost, you've come to the right place. My name is Kevin from the Turf Network, and in this video, I will be exploring the costs of artificial grass. Here's an overview of what I'll be covering, starting with the average cost of an artificial grass installation, the cost per square foot of artificial grass, the factors that affect an installation cost, a comparison of installing artificial grass versus sod, a second comparison of the maintenance costs of artificial grass compared to natural grass, a look at the return on investment for artificial grass, your financing options, and some cost saving tips. So how much does it cost to install artificial grass? While researching for this, I came across quite a few different answers. To simplify things, I took from the first 2 pages of the search results on Google for the search term artificial grass cost, the 7 most authoritative websites, which are Fixer.com, Angie, formerly Angie's List, Home Advisor, BobVila.com, Home Guide, Lawn Starter, and Lawn Love. They basically all say something different about the cost of installing artificial grass. So I just took each of their respective costs and averaged them to come up with the metrics throughout this presentation. So the average cost for artificial grass, based on the averages from the sites I just mentioned, is $5,390. That's in the United States. The low end of that scale is $3,015, and the high end, $7,698. How much does artificial grass cost per square foot? Before going any further, it's important to note that the cost per square foot I'm referring to covers or includes both material and labor costs. And variations in cost per square foot can largely be attributed to product quality, location, and installation complexity, amongst other things. And generally speaking, higher quality turf products or artificial grass tends to be more expensive. Here's an overview of the material costs and labor costs. Material costs being artificial grass and other materials, which we'll get into later. Those average $3 to $10 per square foot, and the labor averages $3 to $8 per square foot. So artificial grass installation cost per square foot for materials and labor has a range of between $6 and $18, with the middle of the road being $12, and that again includes materials and labor. What factors affect the cost of an artificial grass installation? Here are the first 6. We have project size, site preparation, the shape of your lawn or whatever space you plan on or would like to have artificial grass installed, the project type, base material, infill material, blade shape, turf backing, turf brand, turf material, and geographic location. Those are the most influential factors that are going to affect the cost of an artificial grass installation. So this is just showing the difference in cost for different size projects. Starting down here at 200 square feet, you're looking at around $1,200 for a 200 square foot artificial grass installation on the low end. The high end for 200 square feet would be about $3,600. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but 1,200 square feet, you're looking on the low end at about $7,200, and the high end as much as $21,600. And up to a 5,000 square foot installation, the low end being around $30,000 and the high end being about $90,000. And generally speaking, the larger your installation, the lower cost your cost per square foot will be. It's just economies of scale. The larger area, the less waste is going to be, and the better deal you're going to get on the materials. Site preparation and cleanup costs. According to Home Advisor, excavating your yard typically costs between $50 and $200 per cubic yard. I'd also like to point out that this cost range can fluctuate depending on how much material needs to be removed from your property when all is said and done. During an installation, the top few layers of soil, so the actual grass itself, and then the top few layers of dirt are dug up and removed. If those need to be transported off your property, then your site prep and cleanup costs are going to be more expensive. If you have an area or space on your property that those materials can be dumped, you'll save on the transportation and disposal costs. The next factor is the shape of your lawn, or if not lawn, the shape of the space you would like to install artificial grass. As you might expect, complex designs increase labor costs by about $1 to $3 per square foot. Project type and turf application. In general, residential projects cost less than commercial projects, and this is due largely to the scale, complexity, and accessibility of installation sites. And the icons I have up here are just the different turf applications that are available for both residential and commercial projects. We have lawns and landscapes, pet turf, dog runs, golf and putting greens, rooftops, decks, patios, swimming pool surrounds or pool decks, playgrounds and play areas, commercial buildings or office space, sports fields and athletic facilities, vets and pet care facilities like doggy daycares or kennels or dog boarding, and gyms and fitness centers are all, I would say, the most common applications for artificial grass across both residential and commercial. Next up, we have two different materials. The base material, which is essentially what's used to create a foundation to install your artificial grass on. Artificial grass can't just be installed over existing grass. You need a solid foundation because the artificial grass needs to be stretched tightly, kind of similar to a carpet, and secured around the edges. And it's secured with most installations using galvanized nails or landscape staples. And the base material will range in cost depending on the type of base used, from about 30 cents to $2 or potentially more per square foot. The most common type of base is Class 2 road base, crushed miscellaneous base, or CMB, and decomposed granite. Different installers in different areas of the country have preferences for different base materials. Generally speaking, Class 2 road base is one of the best, if not the best, for most turf installations. If you have an installation where you'll have a pet going to the bathroom on your turf, decomposed granite may be the better option, simply because it drains more efficiently than other base materials. The next best option in terms of drainage is Class 2 road base. The infill is essentially can be thought of as sand, and sometimes is literally sand. The infill is what's applied on top of your turf once it's actually installed. And it's distributed using a drop spreader over the entire installation, and then your installer will use what's called a power broom, which is basically a weed whacker that, instead of spinning around at the head with a string, has essentially a drum-shaped wire brush that spins like this and is basically dragged against the grain of the turf and agitates the fibers after the infill has been applied. And by shaking the fibers, the infill just kind of settles down to the base, or settles down against the backing of your artificial grass, and essentially supports the actual fibers of your turf by settling up against the base of each fiber and encompassing them. It keeps the fibers upright and prevents your turf from matting. The reason for the range in cost on the infill material is because silica sand is literally one of the infill materials, which is about as inexpensive as you can get. But there are other or newer infills that have certain enhancements or features that, depending on the application, can be beneficial and advantageous to incorporate into your artificial grass installation. One that comes to mind is T-Cool infill, which is a cooling infill that basically is at its core sand, and it has a coating that is able to absorb moisture, and over time releases that moisture. So the infill is applied over your entire artificial turf installation, and it collects moisture from the morning dew, rain, your sprinklers, spritzing it with a hose. Any moisture basically gets trapped in the infill and then is just slowly released. And that is what's called evaporative cooling, and it lowers the surface temperature of your artificial grass. Off the top of my head, I think T-Cool says that it can lower your turf's temperature by like between 30 and 50 degrees. Next up, we have the turf backing, which is literally just what it sounds like, the actual backing. It's what the fibers are actually secured to on your artificial turf. There are more than two types of backing, but hole punched and fully permeable are the most common types of backing used on artificial grass. And hole punched is, I would say, the most tried and true backing. And the backing is relevant and important to the context of an artificial turf installation, because the backing is what facilitates drainage. It allows water, or if relevant, pet urine, to pass through the turf and into the subbase, and will eventually percolate through that into the soil below. Hole punched backings are just what they sound like. It's literally a hot needle pressed through the turf every 4 to 6 inches to create a hole about the size of what you get with a paper hole punch. And those holes, when it rains, for example, the water makes its way to the holes and is able to pass through the turf and drain into the subbase. That has been the backing on most turf products for decades now. The newer backing is fully permeable, which is more commonly found on pet-friendly turf products. But a fully permeable backing doesn't have holes punched through it. The backing itself, from edge to edge, is permeable. So water is able to pass through any point in that backing. And more importantly, dog urine is able to pass through any point in the backing. So the fully permeable backing is a much more efficient drainage system to have on a turf product. Consequently, it's also more expensive. So fully permeable backing equals higher cost, but the most efficient drainage. Hole punch backing, lower cost and less efficient drainage. And that's not to say that hole punch backing doesn't have adequate drainage. It's worked, like I said, for decades on countless turf products with minimal issue. The fully permeable backing is just a much better option for pet installations, or installations where a pet will be involved, because on the hole punch backing, with the spaces between the holes being like 4 to 6 inches, you basically have, I guess, like a no man's land between those holes. So say your dog pees right in the middle between two holes. Some of that pee will make its way to holes, but some of it will just settle on the top of the turf and it will evaporate, but it's going to leave behind a residue of leftover nitrogen and ammonia and whatever else is in dog pee. Over time, that builds up and accumulates on the backing and results in rather unpleasant odors. So you have to be more consistent with rinsing and cleaning your hole punch turf as opposed to a fully permeable turf that allows urine to pass through any point from edge to edge in that turf backing. The brand of turf obviously plays an important role in the cost. I'm not going to go through this list item by item, but I have logos from the larger turf manufacturers in the United States like AstroTurf, Smart Turf, Synthetic Grass Warehouse, Sinlawn, Field Turf, Forever Lawn, Mega Grass. And over here, I have on the left column the brand, and then on the right is the average cost per square foot, or a range of the average cost per square foot. The lowest being $1.75, all the way up to the highest, which is $11.50. The $1.75 per square foot cost probably isn't the best quality turf product. The $11.50 per square foot turf product is in all likelihood a putting green turf product, which we'll get into why that is more expensive when we cover how material influences the cost of artificial grass, which we're going to cover right now. So the cost per square foot for different materials, namely polyethylene, polypropylene, and nylon, which I have pictures of on the screen right now. Polyethylene is the lowest cost option. Polypropylene is middle, and nylon is the most expensive. Polyethylene is more commonly used as a thatch fiber since the introduction of polypropylene into the turf industry, because polypropylene is so much easier to work with and is much more durable than polyethylene. The polyethylene, you're looking at $2 to $4 per square foot on average for turf products made primarily of polyethylene. For polypropylene, $2 to $6 per square foot, and nylon, the most expensive, $5 to $6 per square foot. Nylon isn't used on many regular turf products. It's largely used on putting greens. There are some brands like Canine Grass, which specializes in making artificial grass specifically for dogs. I believe their turf products are nylon. One of the downsides of nylon is, as a material itself, nylon is a lot more abrasive than polypropylene or polyethylene. So it's not the most comfortable, but for pets, it's perfect because it's more durable than the other two materials and just holds up better to the constant foot or paw traffic, for that matter, that turf products need to be able to withstand in pet-friendly applications. Your geographic location plays a role in how much your artificial grass installation will cost. I have some cities marked on a map here, and while I'm not going to go through this list item by item, we'll look at the highest and lowest cost cities. Boston being $7,200 on average as the most expensive, and Philadelphia $2,300, which is actually kind of surprising given that their proximity, they're not that far apart. But anyways, your geographic location does play a role in the cost of your artificial grass installation. Up north, there aren't as many artificial grass companies because half the year is spent not really having to worry about your grass, whether it's covered in snow or is too cold to worry about your lawn. Now we're going to get into the cost comparisons. First, looking at the installation cost of artificial grass versus natural grass or sod. As we established at the beginning, artificial grass cost per square foot, the range is from $6 to $18. For natural grass, it's $1.50 to $4 per square foot, and that's sod, so that's pre-rolled grass, not planted grass seed. Continuing this cost comparison, a hypothetical 1,000 square foot installation for artificial grass at $12 a square foot is $12,000. For sod, you have to install the sod, and for this example, we're going to say you have a sprinkler system installed and will also need to water that grass. The sod itself for a 1,000 square foot installation is using $1.50 per square foot price for the sod, $1,500, and then the sprinkler, I believe off the top of my head, was $1,600 on average, and the water to establish that sod over the establishment period was, I believe, $10. So we have a comparative cost of $3,110.50 for a 1,000 square foot sod installation. So obviously artificial grass is quite a bit more expensive initially. Here's where things get interesting. When we get into the maintenance of artificial grass versus natural grass, that's where things completely flip. So artificial grass, again, for a 1,000 square foot installation compared to a natural grass or sod lawn that is also 1,000 square feet. And we're going to compare the maintenance costs over a 25-year time span. That's not an arbitrary number. Artificial grass can last as long as 25 years if properly maintained. And we want to see how much you'll pay for maintaining natural grass versus what you would have spent during the same time period for artificial grass. So artificial grass maintenance costs for a 1,000 square foot lawn over a 25-year period. The annual maintenance tasks that will end up costing or require some sort of investment are power brushing, which this is a image of a power brush. Spraying it with a hose, so throughout the year it'll cost about $72 just rinsing your turf off, whether it's dust, pet urine, dirt, pollen. That stuff needs to be rinsed off of your turf, and it's easiest to do with a garden hose. Replenishing infill, that is recommended annually. So we have about $100 to $200 to replenish your infill each year. So the total annual cost of maintaining artificial grass for a 1,000 square foot lawn is $281. Over 5 years, it's $1,405, 15 years, $4,215, and 25 years, $7,025. Natural grass for the same size area, 1,000 square foot space or lawn over a 25-year period. This is not necessarily a complete list, so there may be additional items that I missed that should also be on here, but I figured this would suffice for conveying the differences in the cost of maintaining natural grass versus artificial grass. So you have mowing and edging, spring and fall cleanup, and for the spring and fall cleanup, fertilizing, aeration, weed abatement, there's a range for each of those. So I just split it right down the middle and just use the middle of those ranges. We have sprinkler repair, leaf cleanup, and watering for a total annual cost of $3,114. So the 5-year maintenance cost for natural grass is $15,570. The 15-year maintenance cost is $46,710, and the 25-year maintenance cost is $77,850. So that's over a 25-year period. Maintaining a natural grass lawn is going to cost $77,850, and that's with these. If you just don't do any of these and don't perform any maintenance on your lawn other than, say, mowing it like once a month, then it's obviously going to cost you a lot less, but you're going to have a pretty ugly lawn. So we're comparing the cost of maintaining a natural grass lawn and getting it to also come close to the aesthetic appeal of an artificial grass lawn. That's going to take some work. And natural grass usually doesn't last 25 years. So this also doesn't take into account it needing to be resodded or reseeded. So looking at the cost of installing and maintaining artificial grass versus natural grass or sod over a 25-year period, the installation for artificial grass is $12,000, natural grass $3,100. The maintenance for artificial grass $281, natural grass $3,114. The 1 year total cost, artificial grass is basically double the natural grass, and at 5 years, you can see natural grass has already far surpassed by about $5,200. So after 5 years, artificial grass is at $13,405, and natural grass is at $18,680, and the gap just continues to widen with each successive jump in the time frame. So this is just providing a visual representation of the installation and maintenance costs of artificial grass versus natural grass. The artificial grass is this green line. So you can see at 1 year, it's $12,281. And at 25 years, it's $19,025. Natural grass, at 1 year, $6,225. And by the time we get up here to 25 years, you're looking at $80,961. So that's the 25 years, basically the maintenance cost, the annual maintenance cost of natural grass times 25 plus the initial installation costs. And again, that's not taking into account that grass needing to be reseeded or resodded. So when will you see a return on your investment in artificial grass? You should see an ROI based on the metrics we just reviewed it's actually just under 4 years. If I go back, you can see natural grass surpasses artificial grass at 4 years. So basically about 3.5 years, you should see is about the break-even point. So like I illustrated in here, the low end, 3 years, high end, 5 years. What are your financing options for artificial grass? You have home improvement loans, credit cards, I don't recommend that one, or vendor financing. Most turf installers have relationships with financial institutions that they do their financing through. So if you're considering an artificial grass installation, I recommend speaking with your installer or the installers that you're talking to about their financing options. See if they offer any financing. If not, if they have any recommendations. How can you save on installation costs? There are some pretty simple ways you can save. The first, get multiple quotes. Don't just go to the one installer, get a quote from them, and then dive in. Have installers compete against each other. Go get a quote from 3 or 4 or 5 installers and then tell them that you're getting quotes from their competitors. Because the only thing worse than losing business and not knowing why is losing it and knowing that it's going to your competitor. So stir up a little envy between competing artificial grass companies, and hopefully you'll see your costs overall come down. Choose materials wisely. Don't just automatically opt for the cheapest or the most expensive. Granted, the most expensive is probably going to be might be the best quality, but the cheapest likely is going to be a bad enough quality or low quality enough that it may wear out in 10 years. And in 10 years, you have to repeat the whole process and end up spending more than if you had just initially invested more in a higher quality product. Do the prep work yourself. That aspect of an artificial grass installation is a significant portion of the overall project cost. It takes a lot of labor and a lot of effort to basically dig up a yard and remove maybe a few thousand pounds of grass, soil, dirt, shrubs, roots, rocks, basically anything within wherever you want to have artificial grass installed. You can dig that soil or remove the top layer of grass and then remove the top few inches of soil. I don't recommend just doing this, making assumptions about what needs to be done, and then contacting an installer and being like, hey, I dug up my yard. Can you come install artificial grass? That might not work out so well. I would recommend, while you're getting quotes from multiple installers, tell them that you're looking to save on the installation costs, and you have a friend that's a landscaper who offered to help out with the prep work to help you save on your installation costs. This is also, you could also make a trade-off, and by saving on the labor costs by performing the prep work yourself, the money that you save could be invested in a higher quality product. So instead of going for a lower end turf product, you could get a higher quality turf product with more advanced features like antimicrobial protection or better UV protection, better draining or better backing. That is going to end things for this video on the cost of artificial grass. Like I said, my name is Kevin with the Turf Network. We are a growing directory and hope to become, or plan to become, an information hub on basically all things artificial grass. We're looking to create content to educate consumers without imposing our beliefs or our bias about any one particular installer, manufacturer, supplier, or anything. We just want to provide the facts and help people make the best decision for them, because we believe pretty strongly in artificial grass and think it's a fantastic investment, but it's not a cheap investment. So it's something you need to research and look into before diving into. If you made it to the end of this, thank you for taking time to watch this video. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, my email, the Turf Network phone number is on the screen right now, and I recommend checking out the Turf Network. You can visit us at turfnetwork.org, and from the homepage, you can search for an installer, manufacturer, supplier of artificial grass, or auxiliary artificial grass services like odor removal, maintenance and repair, or turf cleaning services. So again, thank you for taking time to watch this, and have a good day.